I'll let you figure out what you want to do.
Thank you. I might not be able to see over this thing, so that's awesome. Is that on?
It's on a little.
A little? I feel like Britney Spears. Does this work?
I don't think so.
Put it to my ear, put it down my chest.
Just, it picks up really well. So
Okay, it's gonna go right there. Okay, so I'm gonna read a few poems for you. This is the second reading I've done out of this new book. So it's pretty exciting. I've read a lot of these poems in Michigan at KVCC and probably 4 or 5 years ago here, when some of them were really, really new. So I guess I'll just read. I'll probably swear at least once in a poem, so that's cool. Fuck yeah. Get out of the way, right? Okay, so this is called Family Vacation. Have you ever thought that you're crazy? They have been driving for 4 hours. The Mackinac Bridge looms ahead of them. She is terrified of bridges, open water, falling. She cannot swim. She will not ask him to drive. Have you ever thought that you need help? This is the most he said on the subject of love. I'm just joking. You've lost your sense of humor, Christ. His hand reaches for her knee. He pushes up the thin cotton of her sundress, fingers the elastic of her underwear. If I drive, you could go down on me. It'd be fun. Why don't you take a chance? The baby will sleep. He'll never know. Have a little adventure once in a while. Why do you have to be so frigid? The bridge is built to sway. This is what keeps it from snapping. Stop it, she says. Stop. He does, for a while. Once she asked him if he had an inner life. What do you mean? Like guts? Like my intestines? The bridge is 5 miles long. The straits below are dangerous, and the bridge was a triumph. This is what she learned from the travel brochure. In St. Ignace, they stop at a rest stop that sells Indian drums, rolling papers, Petoskey stones. She buys a drum for the baby. He gums it, beats it against the car seat, chews the wooden handle. She lets the man drive. Beneath the car, the water seems to be made of rough stone, and she tries to focus on the car in front of her. Seabirds swoop down from the bearings to the water below. Soon, his hand cups the back of her head, thumb stroking her ear. Relax, he says. We're not going to fall in. He pushes her head down, already unzipping his jeans. She does nothing to stop him. She imagines water, waves, the great stones at the bottom of the straits. You're all really uplifting. Feel good about life and marriage. Great idea. Funny poems. I love writing funny poems. I've never done it. This is called Drought. There's a couple drought poems in here. I'm just going to do one. Drought. Catch crows on the tip of your tongue. Swallow. Eat the small eggs of a wren. Lick your milky palm. A quart of foxes in the berry bucket. Eat bullets, eat blackberries, marginalia creamed with spinach leaves, garlic, cowbane, hogweed. Eat this, you'll die. Touch this, you'll go blind. North of Cadillac, Fields of wind machines fan the flames. Mount Pleasant, a shriveled fruit. Kalamazoo, brown as a goat. Leak milk into the wooden bowl. Unsheath the bulbs from their sockets. Flower from its pistil. Undo those creamy blossoms. Eat your hat, eat your words, crow perched on the tip of your tongue, word that won't come. Mackinac floats its turtled back into the straits. My son cartwheels, incline, rock, juniper. He's fine, I'm floundering. Tuck your hand into mine, child. Lake Huron mops the sky with its blue hair. The bicycles tremble. Rabbits, mergansers. It isn't fair, any of it. The horizon drapes itself across the bridge, all blue, trembling, all vine unstoppered. All of that space, open. Such burning as this. So a lot of these poems have come out of writing with my students, and a lot of them went through a writing group that I was very lucky to join recently, a lot of whom are here, which has been really wonderful. I've needed that, and I found it. I'm going to read 2 new poems, and then I'll get back to the book. These are prose poems, because I forgot how to write lines. So that's cool, awesome. This is called Road to Canaan. The boys lit the cherry trees on fire. The can knocked against their knees, and the hill was steep, and the orchard sung with bees, with wind. The boys lived in 3 green houses down the street. They were 11 or 10. Their fathers gave them the idea. Their fathers lit the match. It hadn't rained in weeks. Wind like an arm across their necks. And the cherry trees doused in gasoline burned, and blossoms fell like wings. I followed them, though I was not dressed for it, though my baby was asleep in my arms. And rust-flecked were the swords that guarded the garden, and the angels in their dirty fatigues fell down and kissed my bare feet. I undid the stays of mine, and my nightgown muddy and ruined, and I was ruined, and we all. The baby was half wolf, half bird. He wept in my arms. The baby's mouth like an open wound. Green weather on the wind. Land of milk and honey. Over the lake, the stars were clotted cream. This is called Sign, and it has a epigraph, is that the name? It's from the Bible. And it's, Jesus said to the woman, "Your faith has saved you, go in peace." What saves but faith in things? The dry well, the irritant, the handmaid, piano, bauble, bayonet, the house wren's nest left on the compost heap, the rake, the lock, the closed door, and I still want more vicissitudes. If you, and then, fender, prayer, lake's temper and taste, collar to my thirst, colder around my bare waist. One day she's in her blue robe, the next she's murdered the children, drowned everyone but the rats. The fat sun heaves over the empty trees, and the woman I was went home, brushed her hair. The woman I've become clamors from the boat, no jar to be filled. This is not a love poem. This is not a charm, a pipe, a bird. It lifts its song above the waves, and from the crow's lonely throat, a plume of moths contrails the sky above the dirt. This is not suburban, not an exercise, not vow or attention, not sex, not breath. This is not Miami Avenue or Boylan Street, abandoned mill, not the landfill, sluggish river, not loneliness, not regret. A sky filled with birds, a sky filled with air. This is not scared, not the woman who held her breath for 13 years, not Lear. This is the future. This is the open palm, is psalm. Trees cradle the sky. Is this the point of liftoff? The garden grows wilder every afternoon. Soon crows gather and pick at the hem of my yellow dress. Weasels wear their wedding rings like amulets. And in the woods, a bear stirs in her luxurious furs. That old song, it's done. Let me say it again. Autumn came and opened its borders, split open my chest. All the words climbed out. This is called Love Charm. I don't recommend using it. It's a bad idea. On the table, an empty bowl. The garden, a funeral of moths. Cup plant brimming with last night's rain. Dawn, lawn laced with frost. A few scraps of dinner balance on the compost heap. Melon, lettuce. At the Hinge Creek, bright-eyed things scuttle back toward the shadowy edge of the yard near the pond, the dark heart of everything. The back porch damp. I close the garden gate. The trail is narrow, gravel, then dirt, then deer track. I put my feet in the slender hoof hollows of a young doe and keep walking. The way thick with wild burdock, wild chervil. The air full of bullfrog and warbler, geese southbound. The dogs clamber on ahead, noses to the ground, dew spangling the soft underfur of their bellies. Here the pond opens her mouth to the stream, a log blistered with frogs, pale mounds of sweetbread mushrooms bloom. The last trees in the orchard curve over the hill, sway quietly in small wind. This is where I buried the charm, a knife, pearl-handled and flecked with rust beneath the apple trees. A battered blade, a sparrow's heart, a weapon to slit love's tender throat. The dogs circle back, begin to head for home. The orchard struck with fire blight, only a few bitter windfalls on the ground. So, the wind's picked up just right. A few leaves scuttle past, a hatch of flies swarm over the pond. Love shakes his little rattle in the eastern sky. How slowly I walk toward the house. The windows are blank, a trail of smoke from the chimney, and a light flicks on in the kitchen where my husband waits, his lips just shaping my name. I'll do two more. This is called Sugar Sand. And when she did it, she used a knife. The bird was her tongue. And she said, I'm done. And she slid it beneath her ribs, and she emptied the place the heart should be. And out came water, and out came God on his knees. And she used it to slice away her skin and let her pelt gleam in the terrible light. All the stars tumbled into the lake. And she climbed the pier and left, and the lake was still as stone, and she fell for years before she knew she was flying. And the baby grew into a boy and held her hand through the damp parking lot, and the lights flickered on. And her life was called persistence, regret, the glory of God. The boy held the rock split by fire in his palm. Light fell from the sky. Light rose up in pillars from our feet. And the mother held her boy, and it was the sweetness. And the dunes were whipped with wind, and the sand sang beneath our toes, and my son threw stones into the water, the high arc of blessing, of the future, of the wild beach pea that clings even in death to the fence. Lake that lashed against the pier, the drowned moon, headland, all night. Oh, I'll burn this fire my whole life. The last poem. It's called Instructional Design. In this new life, is there a man who calls me lovely? Do I care? Little blue flame, gun-damp twilight, lift me into evening's last air. Cadenza me against the credenza, carve the rules upon my hair. Cicadas fly. I've left the place where nothing was fine. That backwards glance, old rag on my brow. That was the past, and I've choked it. So press your muzzle against my neck. Set all the atomic clocks back. Lay the ladder against the heaves, cleave onto me. Bible thump me awake. It's me I want to save. Leap headlong into lake, headlands grass woven, wind harped, the scarp sharp and unkempt, beach roads, the unstoppered mouth. What I'm saying is a woman can only flay herself once. Sinew, scrap, I've taxidermied all that. Made this honed thing, this blessing, this life. What I hold in my hands, I own. The bones of a dead crow, the auger, the ashes of some dead girl who rolled away the stone. Baby, climb up these branches of unsoured sky, the puddle of my eye, hold me against all reason. All guns are permitted this season, and I'm alone in these woods. I've gathered all the flowers, all the bullets I could. Don't worry, I'm not going to read anymore, but it's my son's waving at me. Hi. For the last 14 years, I have been lucky enough to teach with our second reader, Rob Haight. We've read a lot together in those last 14 years, probably more so in the last 5 or so. His new book, which you should buy because it's awesome, Feeding Wild Birds, it contains the kind of poems I wish that I could write. I do. They're full of awe and wonder for the world, and they seem to find that place where the human and the natural meet. So please join me in welcoming Rob Haight.
That doesn't seem to be right.
Look at your glasses, baby.
Well, hello, and thanks for coming. Thanks to the Friends of Poetry for asking me to read here. It's a pleasure to come into Kalamazoo. I forgot what Oakland Drive can be like at 5 o'clock. But I used to live on Oakland Drive many years ago. It was kind of nice to be back there again. Two dogs with children. Say you've just come over the hump and can see one dog on the side of the highway, ribbons of blood and drool flagging from its mouth, trickling off the shoulder into rust-stained dirt. It is the dog that has chased your car each morning on your way to work, made you brake as it trotted ahead of your left front tire, until far enough from home it turned away and you could accelerate to 65. 4 kids stand around where their front yard meets the road. It is their dog, but they haven't moved it. They are waiting for someone to get home. You crawl past them, see their eyes turn to where their dog fixes its stare into a tiny galaxy of asphalt, while their other dog keeps its distance, its long coat slapped to life from a stream of wind by the barn. None of it helps. The next Monday, they wait for the school bus and watch the other dog become the first, tearing after every truck and car cruising by, snarling at the bus tires. Each morning you pass, the dog is still alive, crouched to jump in front of your car, while the children look down, embarrassed, perhaps as much for their bright nylon coats and rubber boots, or the junk buses and rusted 60s pickups rotting in the weeds that make up their yard, as for any training they owe their dog. And so I ask, what do you do? Do you stop and shout at them to get that goddamn dog off the road, to tie it to a chain, and when it starts after the wheels, to yank it back until it learns? Or do you roll down the window and touch their hair, one dog already crushed before their eyes? Or do you just drive ahead, let leash laws and agencies promise all the necessary repairs? So I thought I'd start with something to get you in a good mood. You know?
It does, no problem.
You know, we're starting to get into fall, and so I thought I would read some poems that are kind of based in fall. This is a poem called Apples. It's about a centennial farm, and a farm that's been in one family for a long time. So it made me think of the Garden of Eden, you know, which was probably like the first family farm. And then it made me think of inbreeding.
Of course.
So that's what this poem's about. Apples. This year we drove to a farm to buy apples for pies and cider, bread and sauce, apples stuffed with sauerkraut, stuffed with sausage and bake, sauteed with bacon. This would require pounds of red and golden delicious, Gravenstein and yellow transparent, wealthy, Grimes golden, Jonathan McIntosh, early and late, Cortland, York Imperial, Rhode Island Greening, Newtown Pippin, Baldwin, Rome Beauty, Northern Spice, Stamen and Winesap. So we raced from the city that golden autumn afternoon to load apple crates into the trunk and cart home our slice of the orchard. A sign in the front yard read, Centennial Farm. This farm has been in one family for over 100 years, and it cheered us to know these people must have grown from a history of apples. We walked across a dirt drive to the barn, dust clouding our ankles, where a woman talked to a man, apple talk, and the bins overflowed a rainbow of apples and apple must hung in the air. We waited until we ran out of bins and bushels to pretend to inspect. Yet no proposal for sale had been tendered, and the dark barn shadowed the blush that had risen to our cheeks on the drive, and we withdrew and kicked at straw. A couple of kids tore around like dogs, pulling at each other, and then ran off. Our son and daughter inspected barnwood. I wasn't sure what a half-peck was, and when the farmer, whose narrow head stuck out from his beard, finally labored over and drawled about what he could get me, I foundered and pointed toward a pile. His woman or sister lurched off to get cider, a gallon for half the price you'd pay in the store, and I threw a bunch of apples into a grocery bag and started my wife and kids toward the car, where we would either meet the woman again or one of those pedigreed children as we drove out and grabbed the cider, because all they did was talk, and not much of that either, about the weeks and weeks it takes for apples to grow sweeter, and I just couldn't stand it any longer. I mean, I just didn't have the stomach for that. Okay. This is called Planning a Poem. It's the first poem in this collection. I was kind of thinking about just calling it planning in general, and not have it refer directly to poetry, but then I decided to keep the poem in there. But planning is planning, isn't it? I mean, in a lot of ways. You know, it's like forcing our ideas on the future. Gives us a sense that there is one. It's kind of a nice thing. But Frost, you know, talked about the element of surprise in writing. And a lot of people talk about it's not worth doing if you don't surprise yourself. So the idea of having it all figured out before you start seems to be not what creative writing is supposed to be about. But I'm a planner. This is planning a poem. When I take the dogs out for their walk just after dawn, I might intend to notice how many more leaves have fallen in the breeze on the Maple Road since yesterday, as summer makes its slow September turn toward autumn. Or I might check how many more leaves on the birch have become gold coins, while most still wear green. Or see how the bean field down the road, bleached by the sun another afternoon, has lightened to a new shade of amber. Until I approach the ponds, where a heron that must have spent the night standing as still as driftwood on the shore unfurls and flaps the blue sheets of its wings and lifts off into the air. So see, there's that heron with surprise in writing. This is a poem. I had kind of forgotten about this poem, and then it was in Encore magazine recently, and I went, oh yeah. But I like the subject matter of it because it's about going swimming in the lake after Labor Day. And you know how, for a lot of people, I play golf too, and Labor Day comes and everybody goes, oh, that's it, summer's over. You know, like immediately take out a wool sweater. You can't swim anymore. You can't golf anymore. You have to do like autumnal things. And I like the idea of throwing oneself into the fall, doing things that you're not supposed to do. So this is about that. Swimming after Labor Day. They've disassembled the dock and stacked it under a blue tarp. Plywood boards lid the windows of the concession stand. The trash cans no longer cough napkins into the wind. Only gulls remain, soaring like lost silver kites along the shoreline, calling out to the gusts that flap the shredded flag. Waves rushing sand, keeping time the old way. Water charged with autumn as I walk out into the deepening blue, breathe in the cold air, and die. It's on a metaphorical level, but you know, live your life, dang it. This is a poem that has no metaphorical value whatsoever. It's definitely not about me, so don't think that it's about me, okay? It's not about me. It's called Relapse. It's a prose poem. I gave up on lines too, right? Came out, you know, about somebody else. Relapse. Your bad habits come back to visit like old college friends. It can only be a short stay, they insist. Only a day or two, perhaps a long weekend before they must get back to the family, to their responsibilities, to their hard-won prosperity. They've changed too, they tell you, and understand your reluctance to visit those wild days on the campus of the Seven Sins. When you live in the present, there's no such thing as a one-night stand, one chuckles, offering a silver butane lighter that clicks open and close like a lock. And yes, you can feel your youth return, shinnying up your spine, offering a certain clarity to your eyes as if intelligence could be unwrapped from the gauze of time. One should celebrate life by swallowing it, another says, winking. And before you know it, they are unpacking their smelly suitcases in the guest room, never complaining that you woke them too early with the hacking cough you seem recently to have developed. While you're in the shower scrubbing yourself In the steam, you plot the ways you will get them to leave. It's not about me. This is about a week away, this poem. Nah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away. Early October snow. It will not stay. But this morning we wake the pale muslin stretched across the grass. The pumpkins still in the fields, our planet shrouded by clouds. The Weber wears a dunce cap and sits in a corner by the garage where asters wrap scarves around their necks to warm their blooms. The leaves, still soldered to their branches by a frozen drop of dew, splash apple and pear paint along the roadsides. It seems we have glanced out a window into the near future, mid-December, say, the black and white photo of winter carefully laid over the present autumn. Like a morning, we pause at the mirror, inspecting the single strand of hair that overnight has turned to snow. I've had a lot more than just that. This is a Haight. You know Haight? I'm trying to make this like, you know, you can get credit for after we're done. Haight, yes? Haight is a Japanese basho used to write. They're a combination of prose and then they end with a haiku. And I find that form really attractive. So I have a number of them in this book, and I'm just going to read one of them. It's number 4. Good title, 4. Actually, the title was For Haight in November, so it's the last of them. So it's a little prose piece, and then it ends with a haiku. It was raining. The fields had been harvested. Now they were brown scalps under a gray cloud. Then there was a lightning, a hint of silver in the sky, a streak of sunshine. The raindrops swelled and turned white and feathery in the wind. It was as if a cocoon had burst open and white butterflies had appeared, or a blanket hatch of September mayflies had erupted on the river. Snowflakes rising and falling, veering in every direction. The field slowly turned white. The trees along the road turned white. The deer hunters couldn't see and left for home to dry out. And the deer moved to the edge of the trees to look out at the field and the snow. Rain changing to snow. A pickup truck passed by. Track's already gone. So that's a poem that's kind of about the ephemeral quality of weather, how it changes so quickly. I'll just read a couple more. There's one I had in mind. I should probably look at the table of contents.
No, that's too easy.
You know, this book's divided into the seasons, and oh yeah, that's right. So that's how I can remember where it is. This is a direct addressal poem. It's a poem that directly addresses its subject. So I'm writing directly to the thing that I'm writing to. And it's to a coyote. Thank you, Susan Ramsey, for the first image in this poem. I steal from everyone equally. And then occasionally, if they attend a reading of mine, I tell them about it. She had reminded me that, and others, that coyotes are really nasty as far as their predation on sheep and lambs, and that they will eat their organs without killing them first. It's part of the coyote business. And yet, I have kind of a sympathetic relationship with coyotes because they're such beautiful creatures in their own coyote-like way. I mean, look at some of the things we do as humans. You know, we have a lot of predation as well on each other. To a coyote. The farmers despise your kind, I'm told, because you favor the nutrient-rich organs of lambs that you devour without first killing them. And I imagine the blood-stained fur around your pale tan mouth, black lips and even teeth dangling a few scraps of flesh when I find you on the side of the road, lying across some fallen tree trunks and branches that hold you above the ground, your body bent back on itself and your head twisted toward the road. The hunters who searched for you with their pickup trucks and walkie-talkies all winter never found you. I had hoped they wouldn't. Each morning I saw them when I was out walking my dogs. There is no blood anywhere on your golden and white fur, still trembling a little in the breeze. No gunshot wound or arrow puncture. Your purple tongue hangs out as if you might open your eyes and lick my hand as I lift you off the logs to place you on the ground, out of sight of the road, while the snow slowly falls over us both, over the woods, over the road, covering your body with its cool blanket, covering my tracks as I slip back up the road, unseen in the gathering morning light. This is called Old Man River. You know the song, Old Man River? It's not about me. It's like that other poem. Old Man River. I sing most mornings in the shower, in the garage gathering firewood for the stove, usually Beatles ballads like Norwegian Wood, or Since I Fell For You the way Al Jarreau did it. Sinatra, That's Life. And sometimes I admit Tom Jones. It's not unusual. All in my narrow middle range, except for that morning I wake, my head congested, my voice croaking an octave above the inaudible hum of the universe. Then, for a short while, I am one of the basses. And while starting a pot of coffee, launch into Old Man River, a song I do only when suffering as I am now. A certain power vibrating the tight muscles of my chest, deep moan of the Mississippi, Jules Bledsoe and Paul Robeson. You and me, we sweat and strain, body all aching and racked with pain. Tote that barge, lift that bale, get a little drunk and your land's in jail. I sing all the way out the door, into the bruised darkness of this January morning, to sweep snow off my daughter's car while she dries her hair. So I'll do one more and then finish. This is, I've told my students that if they title a poem like this, I would say, what are you titling a poem like this for? Do something more original. But then I do it myself because I'm the teacher. A beautiful snowy day. I like understated titles. A beautiful snowy day, and this will be the last poem. What if all we wish we had said in our lives began descending from the clouds as snow? Each flake, I love you, from that sullen neighbor boy kicking an ice chunk down the road that fell from the wheel well of a passing car. Flakes whispering, hold me, I've tried, as the widow dries the one plate and places it back in the cupboard, as the driver pulls the gas gun from the pump at the station. Snow spiraling towards the streets and fields, which are filling now with a certain softness as the swirling hushes and sighs in what might have been a wind, but is instead the breath of mothers, fathers, friends, spouses, partners, sisters, brothers. So many who are waking from a dream in which they could not speak, a dream in which their mouths were frozen closed, and all they could do was look around at the snow and go on with their baffling, silent lives.
Those are all about him. The bookstore is now open in the back, and our little fundraising effort, I'll be at the door trying to get a buck from you.
Questions or not?
Yes, would you like to ask them questions? Sarah, Rob, come up here.
Sure.
What is your bad habit? Is it cigarette smoking?
Which one? I'm as pure as the driven snow.
Here, you
On a beautiful day.
You better have a question. Seriously.
Okay, Rob, what are you working on now? What is your next book going to be?
That's a great question.
We're ready.
You know, I have no plans for my writing and especially for my writing career. I'm teaching now, it's fall semester. I'm writing poems and I usually write nonfiction essays as well. The things that I write about are just the things that are my life, you know, I mean, that's living out in the world. And, but I don't do it with any sense of an agenda because I just don't think that it would be as much fun. So I do it because I enjoy it. And whatever comes out of that for me is just gravy. So who knows? I mean, at the rate that I do things, you know, I'll be like 90 when the next one's done. So, you know, and I'm only 33 now. So
So are you both writing in prose these days, or are you both? Prose and lines?
I thought I was all prose. I've been writing a lot of essays as well. And then last week it didn't work in prose. I don't know. You know, you write and it comes out and it's a wreck, and then you ignore it for a long time, and sometimes it's still a wreck, and sometimes it's not. So a lot of prose, but only a paragraph worth. Then they all die. The end of my story.
I have a question for both. When you have like an idea for writing, do you write it down instantly? I mean, how do you keep track of those thoughts, just to keep it going?
I'm a single mom, so no. I mean, I would love to write things down instantly. Sometimes I do. I run, and I often compose when I'm running. I don't listen to music, so I sing, which is ridiculous to anyone who is with me. And I sometimes compose in my head, but no, I wish I did write it down as it came.
Yeah.
I rarely have ideas, though. That's kind of the problem. It's true.
What about you?
you know, I've heard of other people. I've never been a person who like jots things down on like napkins or driving the car. You know, wait, I've got to pull over. A simile just came to me. You know, something. I've never done that. I've never like carried a recorder and said, you know, oh, I better do this. For me, I'm thinking about possibilities for writing quite a lot, but I like to gather myself in a place and be kind of quiet for a while and put out my antenna, which I've got down right now. You can't see it. It comes out of the back of my neck, goes up like that. It should become a satellite dish these days. Saying antenna's kind of dating me. But you know, I like sit down and put my antenna up and just see what is going to be attracted. And there are things, I will say this, there are notions that have like stuck around with me for days. And I will eventually sit down and write them, but I don't feel like I have to rush to do it. Because if they're good ones, I'm not going to forget them. You know, it's not like, oh, that was such a great idea. Well, I actually do that a lot. But I don't worry about that, because it will come back. When I'm sitting in place, it will come back to me. I always have that belief. I don't worry about it. And I try to be a safe driver.
I read in your publicity material there for this event that you also teach meditation. Is there a relationship between meditation and writing for you?
Yes. For me, the way that I would put it is meditation is breathing in and writing is breathing out. And I use that. I use that metaphor for a lot of different things, but also for me, reading is breathing in. I love reading other poets. It's not like I feel like I have to work to do that. I just love doing that. And so I'm always looking for new poems by people. And when I run into them, you know, like all different places, like, wow, I really like that poem. And all of that is just like energizing to me. And then the writing myself is kind of like an exhalation. When I get done doing it, I feel the way that you feel when you let out a nice deep breath and you go, ah. You know, try that. You know, that's how I feel when I've written. And so I do see them kind of being similar. I do both, you know, really regularly, so.
Sarah, when you're singing, I heard you have marvelous voice. When you're singing, does that ever inspire poetry in you, or is that a completely different activity from your poetic creation?
That's a really good question. When I was an undergraduate, everyone said to me, oh, you should write about singing. I can't. I can. But I think they come from the same place. Singing, you know, I sing in the community. That's totally public, right? Like I'm up there, you hear my voice, but it's not my words. I don't perform my own music. I don't write my own songs. This is far more terrifying. I mean, I feel like I just got naked in the Target dressing room and you're all watching. You know, like those lights make you look like steady light on your face. So singing, although if you see me sing, you'll see my knee shakes like nobody's business. You couldn't see it here. I was on my tiptoes here. But I think they come from the same place. They're just, so far they haven't come together. Maybe they will.
You know, no one ever asked me about my singing, except I was doing reading in Ludington, and Judith Minty said, please don't sing anymore. Because Sarah's a good singer, you know, she's like a professional singer.
Can you do Old Man River?
No.
She has to have a cold first, and let's not wish that on her.